said the representative from the Police Officers Union. Much more on that story coming up on Reporting Scotland on BBC One at 6:30. Now, how often have you been tidying up and you find something that you didn't know you had, or perhaps you didn't know what it is? Well, Heather Gough from Arran discovered something rather unusual when she and her granddaughter were clearing out some of her late husband's stuff from the attic. I'm going to let Heather take up the story.
I have to tell you that the person who actually discovered the item was my 11-year-old granddaughter, who was helping my daughter and I clear out my late husband's office. And she was right on step ladders, right going to the top shelf because we'd done everything else. And she suddenly said, "I found a bomb." And of course I said, "Oh, don't think it can be a bomb." However, she handed me, this 11-year-old handed me this thing. It was about 6 inches long and it was little knobbles round about it, and I recognised it right away as a First World War grenade. And how she recognised it was a bomb, I do not know, but she was right. Anyway, so fortunately, she just handed it very gently to me, and I, trying not to panic, sort of backed away through the back door, up the garden, and deposited it yards and yards away from the house. You know, fortunately, we don't have neighbours that side, so it was fine. So then, and then I thought, oh my goodness, what will I do? This is a First World War grenade. So I decided, after I got over that slight panic, that it's my granddaughter that had taken it down from the shelf, and after I got over the fact that how could Stuart be so irresponsible to have this in the house? You know, after all that, I thought, right, I better phone the police. So I phoned the police. A charming person in Police Scotland asked me a whole lot of questions about what it looked like and so on and so forth. However, he said, no, you're doing the right thing. We must check up on all of these things. And he told me that our local police would be in touch, and they were within half an hour. Gosh. 2 local police officers, and their eyes are on stalks, excited.
As are mine.
Yes. And I said, oh yes. Yes, it's. I'll show you where it is. And he said, no, please, no. We will go and look at it. I have instructions to remove the object far up the garden, and if you've got a bucket, I'm going to put a bucket over it. So he and the young female officer, who's only here for the summer, and she said it was the most exciting thing that happened to her all summer. So they went and they found the grenade, and they carried it very gently up the garden, put a bucket over it, and awaited instructions. And the instructions were to be, because the bomb squad had to be involved. I mean, by this time, it says that hysterics and drama, are engulfing us. So anyway, but here's the funny thing, Fiona. The bomb squad couldn't get over to the island because they couldn't get on the ferry. Now, the bomb squad are at Faslane. And, I live on Arran, Fiona, and I live on the main road, and the police car was there all afternoon, and nobody phoned me to say, "Are you all right, Heather? Sorry." Nobody phoned. It's as if the Bush Telegraph had been completely suspended. So anyway, next day dawned, very exciting, 3:30. Julia arrived, not just the bomb squad, but all the Arran policemen and several Arran police cars, a van, a Land Rover, a car, that sort of thing. So they were all there, and they all came up the drive. And of course, I directed them along the garden, and there were 4 guys from the bomb squad. Four guys, and they're real strapping macho lads. I had imagined, I suppose, silly me, but I had imagined.
Yeah, what were you expecting?
Well, I was expecting maybe a little nerdy guy with little hands who would be very delicate dealing with bombs. Little fingers, so that he could defuse it delicately. However, no, these were big guys, and they had a big metal box, and they went up the garden, didn't let me go. To be honest, at that moment, I thought it was overkill. I thought it was just over the top, However, they very delicately picked up the little thing and put it in the box. And they walked back down the garden and said to me, right, we're going off to detonate it. So they drove up the road past, I don't know if you know, Aaron, but past Sannox, there's a quarry just opposite the lovely walk to the shore. Well, that's where they were going to explode it. Anyway, they drove up the road and they exploded it in Sannox, and apparently it took a lot of exploding. And then I got the call from the young police officer, and she said, "Oh, Mrs. Gough, I have to tell you, it was real." And she said, and it made an enormous explosion, an enormous bang. And I thought, oh my goodness. So of course, from that, okay, it's probably just a wee training thing. It went from that to, oh my word. And that has been in our house for at least 20 years, at least.
Heather, I mean, I'm on tenterhooks here. I don't think producer Phil and I have laughed so much in such a long time. And the thing is, it has got a happy ending because it was taken away, exploded. Yes. But so your granddaughter was actually spot on when she said this is a bomb. The 11-year-old knew.
11-year-old knew. And when I looked at it, I knew it was a grenade, but it did look, because it had concrete around it. And actually, the policeman who visited me, first of all, said, head office think it might be a training one as it's got concrete round it, so it might be.
Well, your granddaughter was spot on. He was wrong. Your granddaughter was right.
Spot on.
And it's been in your house for 20 years. What was it doing in your house?
At least, Fiona. Well, I should explain. My late husband, Stuart, was an inveterate collector of all sorts of things. Weird and wonderful things. Well, he was very interested in the First World War.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know how he got it. I didn't know it was there. And it was in the furthest recess of a shelf at the top of the cupboard. And I think three things, maybe even. Either it was ordnance washed up on the beach, because we live on the shore, and he may have found it on the shore, or he was the archivist at the local museum, and I think some people were always phoning him up, to say, "Oh, Stuart, we've got this. Do you think you'd be interested?" And I think someone might have phoned him up and said, "Oh, do you know, I've got this thing," and an older man or woman would have phoned up and said, "Oh, I've got this thing that my father brought back from the First World War. Would you be interested?" And Stuart would have said yes. But my friend Viv has a more generous for Stuart. She said because the previous owner of the house may well have found it on the beach, because he left lots of things. He was a very eccentric guy, and he left lots of things in the house. And we've been in the house for 30 years. I'm saying at least 20 years.
Wow.
Because
that's quite an ordeal. Anyway. How do you feel after all of that? Because I'm all wrung out now. I mean, I'm an emotional wreck after listening to that. Heather, how are you now?
Well, to be honest, it went from to I'm sure it's just a fake, to oh my goodness, how could Stuart have been so irresponsible? Anger that Stuart had this thing up of the thing, but mostly the relief, because there was a momentary horror that Rachel had picked this up. Of course, it's conceivable it could have exploded in her hand.
Well, thankfully it didn't. Heather Gough from Arran is now my most favourite interviewee that I think I've ever spoken to. What an amazing storyteller. I think just be more Heather if you can. Thank you so much, Heather, for speaking to us. Oh, my goodness. That's it for me. Thanks to you for listening. Big thanks too to the Drive Time team behind the scenes. Radio Scotland Breakfast is back tomorrow morning when you wake up. Now it's time to get the tunes on. Here's Brian. Have a good one.